It was the aunt that needed calming, as she was very frightened about what she had seen. To the young lady, even the ghost of her lover seemed wonderful. He still looked handsome, and although the girl would have preferred a flesh-and-body bridegroom, his ghost was better than nothing. The aunt stated she would never sleep in that room again. The niece, for once, was quite definite in stating that she would sleep in that room and no other. The next night, before she went to the lonely bedroom, she made her aunt promise not to say anything about the ghost. For the young girl, it was the only pleasure she had left to see the ghostly form of her lover each night in the garden. How long the good old aunt would have kept her promise is not known, because she always loved to talk of unusual events and be the first to tell a frightening story. It is still talked about as a remarkable instance of female silence that she kept it to herself for a week. That is all she had to do, as one morning at breakfast the news arrived that the young lady was missing. She could not be found anywhere in the castle. Her bed had not been slept in, and the window was wide open. She had disappeared. The shock and concern with which the news was received can only be imagined. Even the poor relatives stopped their constant eating for a moment when the aunt, who had at first been struck dumb, screamed out, "The goblin! The goblin! She's been carried away by the goblin!" In a few words, she told about the frightening scene in the garden. She kept saying that the ghost must have carried off his bride. 2 staff members agreed with this, as they had heard the sounds of horses' feet around midnight. There was no doubt that it was the ghost on his black horse taking the bride away to the grave. Everyone believed this to be true because history has shown that events of this kind are very common in Germany. What a terrible situation this was for the poor Baron. What a terrible problem for a loving father and a member of the great family of Katzenelnbogen. His only daughter had either been carried away to the grave or was married to some forest creature. What if they produced an army of goblin grandchildren? As usual, he was completely puzzled, and the whole castle was in a state of confusion. The men were ordered to search every road, path and valley of the Odenwald Mountains. The Baron himself had just pulled on his boots, grabbed his weapon, and was about to climb on his horse to join the search when he saw something on the road. A lady on a light horse was seen approaching the castle, accompanied by an escort riding on a large, dark animal. She rode up to the gate and jumped from her horse. Bending down, she held tight to the Baron's knees. It was his lost daughter and her escort, the ghostly bridegroom. The Baron was amazed. He looked at his daughter, then at the ghost, and wondered if he had gone mad. The ghost looked quite different since his visit to the world of spirits. His clothes were impressive and set off his strong, tall body. He was no longer pale and melancholy. His handsome face was pink with health, and his large dark eyes shone with joy and happiness. The mystery was soon solved. The escort was certainly not a goblin or a ghost. He introduced himself as Sir Hermann von Starkenfount. He explained his adventure with the young count. He said how he had hurried to the castle to give them the news of the count's death, but the Baron had not let him get a word into the conversation. The sight of the bride had completely delighted him, and to be near her for a few hours he had let the mistake continue. He said he did not know how to find a proper way to leave the castle until the Baron's goblin stories suggested an unusual way out. Because of the ancient quarrel between the 2 families, he kept his visits to the garden underneath the young lady's window secret. He had attracted her, won her heart, and carried her away in victory to be married. In any other circumstance, the Baron would never have allowed the situation to continue. He was a strict father and a determined enemy in the ancient family battles. He loved his daughter and thought she had been lost. He was delighted to find her still alive and although her husband was from an enemy house, at least he was not a goblin. The Baron did not really agree with the soldier passing himself off as a dead man, but several old soldier friends assured him that every trick was allowed in the game of love. Also, he should pardon the young count because he had recently fought so bravely in the war. Everything was happily settled. The Baron pardoned the young couple on the spot, and the celebration at the castle started again. The poor relations piled love and attention on this new member of the family. He was so brave, so generous, and so rich. The aunts were shocked that their system of strict behavior and duty should have failed so badly. They put it down to their lack of care in not having put bars on the bedroom windows. One of them was particularly disappointed at having her extraordinary story ruined, and at having to admit that the only ghost she had ever seen turned out to be human. The niece, however, seemed perfectly happy to discover her bridegroom was a man of flesh and blood, and so the story ends.